My main channel videos typically get a lot of praise for the editing in them, and that's been going on for about 3 years now. Shortly after I started editing, I learned some techniques that helped my videos seem a lot less stale, and I'd like to share them all with you. A lot of these tips work best in 60 FPS, so make sure that your project file is set to that. You'll also notice I'm using Filmora. These will work with any editing software as it's just simple keyframing. So long as you know how to add one, I think you'll be fine. First up are the character still edits. You can ignore this if you don't have one. Here's the timestamp to do so. If you have an OC, go get some artists to draw some emotions, or hell, go draw them yourself. Make sure that they're close enough to each other so when flipping through them, they're more fluid and they don't jump around a lot. With character stills, a lot of the time I see YouTubers who also use them, they're way too stiff. They don't move around enough, or in some cases, they don't move around at all. A neat trick to avoid looking stale is to make them bounce a bit. Let's start with moving them onto the scene. Take your image where you want them to pop up at and lower them to the point where you can't see them in frame. From there, bring it up as high as you want without showing the bottom of the image, which I usually do in about 7 frames. I personally use a border in my main channel videos, so mine is at plus 40 on the y-axis. Most of you will have that as 0. From there, drop it down by 40 in 5 frames, and then back up by 20 in 2 frames. This will help create a smooth effect instead of just popping in or sliding in. You can adjust the numbers however you like, but these are a good first step. You can also do this from the left or from the right. Same numbers and same amount of frames, but on the x-axis instead of the y-axis. But make sure that you have it at -20 on the y-axis for the next step. These can also be used to make the character go away, simply by reversing the process. When transitioning between character stills, you want to bring your image from -20 down to -40 in 2 frames, and then back up to 0 in 5 frames. Then pick your next character still and do the opposite. Drop from 0 to -20 in 5 frames, and then get back up to your baseline -20 in 2 frames. I also use some stills like this one where she's peeking. When transitioning from something like this one, add in an extra 7 frames going down on the y-axis. In this case, I usually use -500, and when transitioning out, I do the opposite. Start the next still at -500 and bring it upwards. A quick slide from left to right or vice versa can also help bring some life into your video. It's the same idea as what we just talked about. From wherever your still is, let's say on the left, bring it to the right by 20 in 2 frames and back left by 40 in 5 frames. Next depends on where you want to move your image. To the center, in 7 frames, take it to plus 40 on the x-axis, then -20 in 5 frames, and then 0 in 2 frames. Remember to keep your still at -20 on the y-axis. If you want to change the still in the middle, just chop the image and add a new one and continue the slide from the same position as the previous one left off. If you want to go fully to the right, add an additional 7 frames of the still sliding but in reverse. Make sure the image is cut and mirrored, and then it's the same deal. 7 frames to the right, overshoot your destination by 40 in 7 frames, undershoot by 20 in 5, and then get it right on the dot. These can also be used for right to left, just use the opposite numbers. Now on to text. I like having a font that I claim as my own. I may not be the person who made it, but it's one that I like using regularly. You don't have to, but I'd advise some consistency, as it can help with branding, whatever that is. Another huge thing to remember is to always add an outline to your text. I don't care what color it is, just make sure there is an outline that is a different color than the text. A lot of YouTubers simply don't, and it's really annoying. Did you forget to try to read what you were writing and were just hoping that we would be able to make it out on ourselves? To have the text pop into frame from any direction, take it from being unseeable to plus 20 over your desired location in 7 frames, -10 in 5 frames, 5 in 4 frames, and then 0 in 3 frames. This will work for both the X and y-axis. As I said earlier, you can adjust these frame counts and locations as you see fit, but these are roughly what I use, give or take. Most notably, I use it to show what song is being played in the video at that time, and I advise that you make some way for people to find what music you're using, as it's always bothered me when people don't credit the songs, then I have to hope that there's a comment that tells me what it is. You can also make your text pop. Simply make the text a 0 in size, bring it up to plus 5 of your desired percentage in 7 frames, -2.5 of your desired size in 5 frames, plus 2.5 in 4, and then your desired percentage size in 3. This can also be reversed to make it slam down, which I use for some interesting transitions. Just reverse the numbers and make it as big as you could. In my case, 400 usually works pretty fine, but you can go bigger. Just make sure to adjust the frame count to account for the change in size. You'll learn a lot of my editing is based entirely on making things wiggle a little bit before they reach their final size, location, etc., and it looks good too. I don't do them often, but with captions, I usually only add keyframes to the beginning of each each section or word. I don't know if it's like this outside of Filmora, but make sure to stretch the whole text asset to the end and add cuts where you'd like them before you add any keyframes. Filmora will do this if you don't, and I don't know why or how to stop it from doing that. From the beginning, go from 0 to 30 in 5 frames, negative 15 in 4 frames, 5 in 3 frames, and 0 in 2 frames. Do this however you see fit and make sure that they line up with the words being spoken in the video. A lot of what can be applied to text can also be applied to images, videos, GIFs, etc. Anything really. I'll just mention some more image and video based edits here. To make them slide onto screen, take an image out of frame in whichever direction you want it to arrive from, overshoot your destination by 40 in 7 frames, undershoot by 20 in 5, overshoot by 10 in 4, and land at its final destination in 3. Again, these numbers can be adjusted to your liking to be more snappy, more wiggly, or more stiff, whatever have you. Using the same technique as before, let's make an image swing onto screen. Take the image from the direction you're going to shoot it from, take it to its desired location, and then add a rotation of 364 in 7 frames. You can also do this with 724 or any variable of 360, so long as a 4 is added to the end of it. Just remember to account for the frames that you may need to add so it looks smooth. You can also do with any number really, just remember to add a 4 to the end of it. Then, from there, it's the same idea. Let it bounce to your desired number, but this time it's with its rotation instead of its ups, downs, lefts, rights, bigs, and smalls. My final editing technique that I like to use is making an image transform into another image. From where the image is, add 2 to its rotation in 2 frames, negative 4 in 4 frames, and then any variable of 360 with an additional 4 within 7 frames. If you do 720, I'd recommend 14 frames. From the time that it begins to rotate to when it ends rotating, have it fade out. Then add your other image, preferably near the same size, and do the opposite. Everything you added to the previous image, just do it in reverse. It fades in, starts at negative 4 and goes to 364 in my case. Then from there, it's the same overshoot undershoot technique, which will get you through a lot of these. From 364 to 358 to 361 to 360. That's how I usually do it, but again, you can adjust the numbers however you see fit, whatever looks better for you. Oh, and also zooming in and zooming out. As with most things, it varies based on how far in or far out you go, but for a simple zoom in and zoom out, shoot for 7 frames. I really hope I didn't forget any of my basics, and I'm really sorry if I did. With all of these ideas, you should be able to edit a video with quick and snappy visuals. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope this was able to help you in any way.